two things. Let's talk about this before I get to Howard Stern and Tom Brady. Number one, the NBA yesterday, Adam Silver said he is eyeing Labor Day. That's the first weekend of football in America. College football really starts on Labor Day weekend. NFL starts the following Thursday. And then, then where football season in earnest begins once the NFL really begins. So June 10th. So if Labor Day is the end day, and we know the playoffs last 8 weeks, that means you have to start the playoffs by July 1st. Okay? So what that do you need? I think it's reasonable to think you need 3 weeks before that for training camp and maybe a couple of exhibition games. Because, as I've said before, there's nobody really – we already know who the playoff teams are. Portland could get really, really hot and win 5 straight games if you had the regular season and get in. But the 8th-place team would have to lose 3 or 4 of those 5. We know who the playoff teams are. I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep if Washington doesn't get in or Portland doesn't get in. Love Portland, but they've been wildly inconsistent, not very good defensively in the backcourt. We know who they are. We love Damian Lillard. So I think they should just start with the playoffs and go. And as I've said before, the Miami Heat and LeBron James' first title was a strike-shortened year. Nobody cares. If the end of a movie is great, people forget about the choppy middle. Okay, LeBron's first title with D-Wade and Bosh was a strike-shortened season, and you never bring it up, and we never hold it against LeBron. Why? Because it was awesome. It was an awesome championship. So if there's a good championship playoff round, LeBron faces the Clippers, Milwaukee, and Boston, nobody's going to care that you only played like 68 games, 65 games. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care. If the NFL only played 14, not 16, and you had great playoffs and a great December, nobody 25 years at a bar having a Mick Light cares. So what you basically have to do in the NBA, July 1st, you have to start the season. I think it takes 3 weeks of training camp and some at least inter-squad games to get ready so players are fairly finely tuned, 20 days of practice. So can that happen? Well, do I think we're going to see significantly lower numbers of this virus? Will we have flattened the curve? I believe in 9 weeks from today, when you'd have to start practice, yes. Will we have machines capable of testing people within 5 minutes? It looks like, according to Dr. Fauci, we're getting close on that, yes. Will it be seamless? No. Will it be perfect? No. It's managing a crisis. I've said before, now that we have not had the hospital surges outside of New York City that are predicted, it's now just managing this crisis. Once you flatten the curve, it's managing it. You don't have the hospital issue. So we have 47,000 suicides in America today. You manage it. You don't solve it. Okay, the reason our death rate in America, if you look at the average American lives to be 79, in Japan, I think it's 81.5. People say it's diet. Some of it is. Teenagers are on the road driving in this country. We let them. And there's a lot of accidents. And it's sad. We manage it. We never solve it. So once the hospital surge issue is sort of not the primary issue, it's just saving lives, you manage it. You're not going to solve it. If the NBA came back and had a player and 2 coaches with COVID-19, you just manage it. You don't end it. So I think in my entire life, you can't solve every problem. You get rid of the scariest part of the problem, and from that point forward, it is a medical management situation, because we have to now have really adult conversations, and I know they're uncomfortable about pivoting back to an economy that I think is going to hurt the poorest Americans. It's going to hurt the poorest Americans. We can't have that. We can't. They're already at a massive disadvantage. We can't end their hope. So now we have to have real conversations in America about restarting the American economy. It'll be a trickle, not a V-shape. But this is just another thing we have to manage. Once the hospitals surge, we can get past that stage, and we could be 4 to 5 to 6 days past it. We're getting close in most cities. Then we manage. So I think the NBA's got a shot. I'm not going to make any predictions. I think we should just get through April and early May. I think we should just not make predictions for a month. Come back to me like May 8th, May 10th, and we can start making predictions. Now, let's just wait. Yeah. Nick Wright is joining us. I believe the NBA, and I said this yesterday, this is kind of long and I won't bore you, but in Hollywood, Matt Damon can do 2 or 3 movies and then disappear for 5 years. So can Denzel, so can, Morgan Freeman, so can Tom Hanks. But then 4 or 5 years later, they come back, do 2 or 3 movies, and once again, because they're stars, and we love stars, they're the most popular actor in Hollywood. Baseball doesn't have stars. The NBA is driven by them. I believe baseball cannot withstand 18 months of no games. I do think the NBA could withstand no season because it's star-driven. If Matt Damon's got a new movie, damn it, I'm watching it. And if Kevin Durant, Steph are back, I'm watching it. So they have a big advantage over baseball. I think they're going to get in. Yesterday, Adam Silver basically saying Labor Day is the cutoff point, which I love about Adam Silver. That really was encouraging to me because that told me they don't really even have to start practicing till mid-June and start playing till July. So I think an NBA season's going to happen. I do today. Do you?
I do. Now, I will admit, part of it is because I don't want to wrap my mind around the idea of it not happening. And so I agree. I had the exact same reaction as you. As Silver giving, it sounds bad, it sounds weird. That Silver saying a date that if they're not in by, they won't play being a good thing. The fact that he said Labor Day, I thought the exact same thing. Okay, so that means you could have 10 days of the regular season if you wanted at the end of June just as a warm-up, and then the full 2 months of the playoffs in July and August.
Yep.
And still get this thing in. The only issue I will take with what you were saying about the NBA being okay if they don't get it in, of course they'll be okay. But I'm going to later or next week, in the next couple weeks on First Things First, shameless plug, I'm going to go through LeBron's 10 greatest playoff games ever. And in researching that, I realized, the dude's got 40 playoff games that arguably could make the list. Why do I bring that up? We didn't get to see LeBron in the playoffs last year. If they don't have a playoffs this year, we won't get to see it. And then you're into year 18, and while I've never been in the business of doubting LeBron, then you are one tweaked groin away from what? LeBron not being in the playoffs again, and then wait. Was the last great LeBron playoff moment the 51-point game one, and then we never see him in the postseason again? Like, if you miss this postseason, that door starts to open. And I think the NBA is so tied still to LeBron, it's very important this year gets in some way, shape, or form.
Nick Wright, co-host, First Things First. How's your family in Los Angeles? We drive to work. We don't have a dynamic subway system. And we haven't had quite the intensity of the hospitalization scares that New York City has. In New York City today, Nick, how do you feel, the safety, you and your family?
Listen, I'll give the good and the bad of it. The bad is it is scary as far as we try to get outside to go on a family walk, and the streets are vacant, and the only sounds are, honestly, every minute and a half to 2 minutes you hear either a faint or a loud ambulance siren. That's scary. There's lines for the grocery store, and everyone's wearing masks. It feels weird. The good of it is this. I live nowhere near a hospital. Nowhere near a medical facility. Every day at 7 o'clock, my entire neighborhood in Harlem goes out on the porch and starts clapping. They're not even clapping for any medical providers. It's just like a citywide show of support, whether you're near a hospital or not. And it has, at least for me, selfishly, given me a month home with my daughters that I otherwise never would get. So I'm trying. You have been very, and I want to give you a compliment in this regard. Twitter is always kind of more doom and gloom than it should be unless live sports are on, but particularly during this pandemic. Your Twitter feed has been a constant source of whatever positive information there is out there, which I appreciate. And so I do think we're going to get to the other side of this eventually, but I can't lie to you. It is a surreal experience being here in New York City these last 30 days.
Give your family love, your wife. Nick, thank you so much.
You as well. To you, enjoy. I'll talk to you soon, Colin.
Yeah, there are a lot of really positive signs today. New York City has been a hot spot. I do believe Southern governors were a little slow to this. I think Georgia and Florida are going to get beat up a little bit, and they're not going to hit their peak for a while. But the University of Washington model, by the way, I've never understood models. They never liked me in college and after that, and I don't get medical models either. I don't do well with models, period. Never have. But the University of Washington model has come down several times off initial projections. I do believe social distancing for the next 2 weeks is incredibly important. And I do believe warm weather generally stems sort of viruses. But by and large, I think you can look at this two ways. And the way I've tried to look at it, I've never spent this much time with my daughter. We've lived together by ourselves for 3 weeks. The rest of my family's in Utah. I talk to them 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. It's been an unbelievable opportunity. She's a good roommate. One of us is having a good time. I'm wearing her out. One of us is having a great time. And I've watched great documentaries. I've touched friends. I do phone calls for 2 hours a day, long walks. My cat even likes me now. So I'm re-examining, rebooting some things in my life, trying to be more efficient. And it's been, in a strange way, a really interesting opportunity for me to slow down my life, get off the treadmill, and that I appreciate.